Please be advised, this podcast contains graphic audio and themes that may not be appropriate for all listeners. When the building went down on an otherwise unremarkable summer night, it was just 6 months shy of its 40th birthday. Surfside was an outlier, an event almost completely unheard of. The Herald's team started with the basics. They barraged the city of Surfside with requests for records, and within 48 hours, the 2018 inspector's report we've been hearing about was released. The report said that for 40 years, water had seeped through the pool deck and damaged the garage below. It was evidence of a long history of serious problems.
Champlain Towers South was a flat slab construction. Basically, what it means is this is a reinforced concrete structure where a slab, the floor, would sit on top of columns all the way up, right? You had columns, slab, column, slab, column, slab. You can picture how it would be stacked on top of one another. That's the primary structure. Those are the bones of this building.
But why did those bones just break after almost 40 years? The Herald hired Dr. Dawn Lehman to help its reporters find out. She's a professor of engineering at the University of Washington, and she's an expert on buildings just like Champlain Towers South. And she started with the pictures of the disaster.
One of the things we've done is we've gone and looked at photographs, not just after the collapse, but after they cleared the entire site, and we see damage in the perimeter wall that is not indicative of the kind of damage you would have seen from the collapse. We see damage in an area that I call the slab to wall connection. And so we saw after they removed all the debris that it looks like there's damage, and we also saw corrosion in that steel. And so based on that, we started investigating, could the failure have initiated at the southern perimeter wall slab connection?
So the professor is saying the damage in this critical connection between the slab and the wall could have been there for years before the collapse and would have weakened it. Outside, this giant slab was the pool deck and valet parking area, and it extended inside the building as the entire first floor of the L-shaped tower. The lobby, the gym, the Nears, and other apartments. Underneath it all was the parking garage. So this slab was a major part of the structure, but even if it failed, it shouldn't have brought more of the building down with it.
It's important to remember that buildings are built with a lot of redundancy. One thing is supposed to be able to fail. Not that you want it to fail, but if it did fail, it shouldn't take down the rest of the structure. That's not how buildings are built. And so for something to progress like this badly, is extremely unusual. We're talking about something initially failing, almost like starting a chain reaction, a domino effect. And you actually saw what should have happened at Champlain South, and you saw what shouldn't have happened. And what I mean is, only half of the tower fell down. The half of the tower that stayed standing did exactly what you would expect a building to do in that situation. It stood. And the question is then, why did the half that fell fall? What starts coming to light here as you dig into the building plans and the engineering and you start doing load calculations and all of these things that forensic engineers do, you start realizing that poor design, poor construction, degradation, and damage come together to create the perfect storm of conditions that end in a worst case scenario in this part of the building.
Professor Lehman recreated that scenario using a supercomputer and special software that modeled how the collapse might have unfolded, starting at that retaining wall.
So it's really not the wall itself, it's the connection of the slab to the wall. We've built an entire model, and then we looked at the reinforcement that was connecting the slab to the wall, and we see corrosion and see if fracturing the bars at that southern perimeter wall could allow progression of the damage collapse into the pool deck and then eventually move into the building.
And so the question is, what happened first? And how do we know? Because this is the middle of the night. not a lot of people are up at 1 a.m, but there are about 10, 11, 12 witnesses to various aspects of the initial collapse sequence prior to the tower going down that allowed the Miami Herald, along with these other records, to start reconstructing what happened in the 7 minutes in between an initial failure on the pool deck and when that tower went down, that part that we can actually see in the security camera footage from next door.